Good afternoon, my beautiful people. I'm Sotadeology. In today's video, we're going to dissect Sotadeology Lecture 12, the Time Energy Information System of Universe. So now, we want to dive deep into what information is. We want to go deep into the structure of information. And I must tell you that information is not complete. So we're going to see how we can get to the point where information will be so complete by modeling the time energy wave model for us to have the uh, full nature of information. We need to, fully utilize information. So I had one video which I previously uploaded. I had it and it was on information. There I talked about the structure of information, which is having transparent system. It's a kind of relativistic scaling of transparent system to opaque system, but this is going to be an advanced version and it will be more deep than the one I previously uploaded. So now, if you look at what we currently have as information, you know that we have a specific state of light to be, what we can actually use as information. So what am I saying? Like when we have the state of light to be intense, we say it is one. So we map one onto that state. And then when the state of light is off, we map 0 to that. So the reason we have done that is for us to have, a specific state so that we can have, something that we can copy. But when we look at the quantum information, it is not like that because, the quantum, which is the quantum state, is more or less like superposition state, and it is non-clonable, or shall I say it is we can't clone it rather. Okay, now, but before we dive deep into what we need to model as the ideal information that we need to be using right now for us to actually get the reality and then utilize the full potential of information, we need to know that the universe as it is, it has symmetric nature, which it is more or less like system of constancy, and then it has continuous nature, which is asymmetric nature. Or yes, I can say asymmetric because when you are looking at the expanding phase of the universe, we have it to be asymmetric in the sense that the discrete nature of energy is shorter to the continuous flow of time. And that is why we have the tilt effect of, time peregrination. When you have somebody approaching the earth, you have that peregrination into the past. And then when you have, somebody moving away from the earth, we have the tilt peregrination of time towards the future. You understand? But there is a particular spot which is at the central point where we have what can be called global now. And that, I said, it is a state where we have transition of that is discrete nature of energy into smooth nature, and then that is equal to the smooth flow of time to have that vertical line at the central point of the expansion of the cosmological space, and then the contracting phase of the universe, which is the black hole. So the present phase where we have that transition, we can call it a black hole, or we can call it black holes. You understand? So now information is emergent from the structure of the universe. We need to know that. information is part of the universe. And so we're going to use time energy wave model to actually illustrate that in this particular video. So now, by having the state of information to be 1 or 0, we have made energy to be discrete, because we have made energy to be constant, which is ideal. But basically, with that, we have not been able to utilize the full potential of what information should be. And that is the purpose of today's video. So now, let's use the diagram to explain further. This diagram, we have the trajectory of energy. We have the trajectory of time like this, and then the trajectory of energy is inversely related to it. Now, this section is the expanding phase of the cosmological space, and then this portion is the contracting phase, which is the black hole. And then this central line, we can call it event horizon, then we can call it present phase, and that central line that transcends beyond the time energy wave constraint is where we have the reality. And the reality we have at this central line is known as static and undulating field. Then in a field you can have position of particles everywhere, and basically you have the nature of their momentum as well. And so we can have a kind of motion right inside the static and undulating field. And so right inside it, we have instant transmission of information as well, which is what enables us to get connected to the missing piece of electron, which is positron. So the essence of having the global now is for the singularity to be retained, such that the the trajectory from the classical realm, this whole region is the classical realm, and this whole region is the quantum realm, so that the trajectory from the classical realm will be the kind that we synchronize time, such that we have instant trajectory to connect to that singularity where it is sustained, to have this vertical line and even beyond. So now we know that about time. Now there is global now, which is our solution by applying formula of everything. So now let me just put formula of everything here for us to see. Okay, so I'll put formula of everything right here for us to see, which is this. Now this formula is so powerful. This formula is what is used to come about this whole thing, and I can briefly explain it for you. The T, the M, that is the evolution of time per mass formation. So the mass formation could be in terms of accumulation of mass, then it could be in terms of decaying of mass. And so we have it to be in terms of accumulation of mass right here, and right inside the black hole we have it in terms of decaying of mass. So the TDM stands for the curvature of the energy to the curvature of time, as we have it, and right inside it we have a nested linear solution, and that linear solution is the result of this equilateral triangle that we have right here. So now this equilateral triangle, when it is flipped based on the transition at the central line to the positron to energize the electron such that we have momentum into the black hole, then we have the flipped equilateral triangle to form the black hole trajectory, and that is formula of everything for you. So formula of everything we have here is being derived from this formula. And so now information by having one or zero states of light to define information for us. What we have done is we have made energy to be discrete. We have assigned a form of constancy to that system. And when you look at it, you can see that this linear trajectory represents constancy of light, and this linear trajectory represents constancy of gravity. So that is more or less like the structure of the universe, but structure of the universe is not limited to this linear solution. We have curvature outside. And so the curvature that we have is the ability of time trajectory to allow excess energy such that we have uh, elastic structure of the universe that can accommodate more input. And that is why we have the phenomenon of cosmological space expanding. But at the quantum level, we have contraction. And so the excess energy is being shredded off, or is being, excess energy is being cut off so as to maintain that constancy of light. And as a result of that, we do not have any traces of mass convergence right inside the collateral triangle at the quantum level. But at the classical level, we have the real mass worth. So when we put this mass worth of positron in the place of this m and this m, it will give us this value, which is the classical counterpart. So we have the convergence of real classical mass worth inside the system, but the real mass convergence of the quantum system is outside the time energy wave model. So it means that we have transition right from the substrate dimension to higher dimension. So if this diagram is 2D, then the higher dimension is going to be 3D. So basically, we must transit from that discrete nature of energy to smooth nature, because there is a tiny point where energy becomes smooth. And if we can structure information in such a way that we can transit from that discrete nature of energy, which is 1 or 0, to the state where we can randomly, get all the possibilities of superposition. So, which is, in this case, is analog, because it's going to be smooth. So, our information structure should not be limited to discrete nature of energy. It has to transit to analog part as well. And if we can get that will really model this universe as we have it, and then we're going to have full potential of information. Okay, so now another thing we need to know is that we know that for the voice signal is analog, but we have digital signal as well. Now digital signal is being structured, being reframed, being developed, being improved to closely model the analog structure. But it can never be as smooth as analog structure, because when you zoom in onto the signal, onto that digital signal, you will see where they are being demarcated, and that is, that forms the blocks for you to know that the nature of digital signal is constant. So it is not analog, it is not smooth like the gradient effect of color that we have. So basically, voice, the essence that we usually have voice to be analog is for the fact that we need to capture the entirety of that voice communication, and that is why there will be no anything like distortion in the signal. But if it were to be digital signal, some part will be cut off, and so we're not going to have, the full voice signal. That is why analog signal is the ideal signal for voice. So that is what we need to now model. In my time, there is a book I have on Amazon, which is The Invention of Time Technology. Right there, I talked about how we need to restructure information such that we have both digital and analog. So the structure has to be the kind of structure that we can switch from the analog to digital, then from the digital to analog. I'm not talking about modulator, demodulator. I'm not talking about the kind of device that you can use to convert digital signal to analog signal. I'm talking about the structure of information, that instead of having 1 or 0, we should have analog signal as well, such that we can, transit from this one state randomly in our analog signal, and then transit from the 0 digital state to this random smooth signal of analog. But basically, we know that the major challenge is that we're not going to have an actual state of light, and as a result of that, it will be difficult to clone. That is what we have in quantum information, because the quantum state that we have, which when measured is either 1 or 0, that state is not representing the full potential of what information is. The superposition state of quantum information is the ideal state, but we know that that particular state is a kind of state that we cannot clone. So quantum information we cannot clone because it is not reproducible, you understand. But digital state we can reproduce because we have mapped 1 to a specific state of light, and then mapped 0 to a specific state of light. So when there is intense light signal, we map 1 to that, and when there is no light signal, we map 0 to that. And that is why we can, copy. The information is there, we can manipulate it the way we have, we can copy it, we can store it. But now the challenge we have with the analog is that issue of randomness. But then how can we do it such that we can actually integrate analog signal into our information structure? I'm talking about information structure here. I'm not talking about converting digital signal to analog signal. What can we do? It's a difficult task, but what I think we might be able to do, when you look at this time energy wave model, we have this constant speed of gravity, and then this to be constant speed of light, and that forms the structure of the universe. So in the universe we have two flipping mechanisms. We have relativistic flipping mechanism, then we have dimensional flipping mechanism. Dimensional flipping mechanism deals with the inner structure of the universe, which is having this equilateral triangle being flipped to form the black hole. So expanding cosmological space to contracting cosmological space. That is that. But relativistic flipping mechanism, it has to do with the mass convergence, and that gives us smooth formation. But dimensional flipping mechanism deals with shapes, and that gives it deals with the structure of the universe, and that gives us shape and things like that. So now we need to account, because this discrete nature of energy is not the only virtue of the universe. We need to account for this smooth curvature of energy and the smooth curvature of time as well. So we often have excess energy, but for us to have this linear solution being maintained, then the excess information has to be treated as non-existent, such that we can still have this constant nature, and that is the symmetric nature of the universe. And then by having this trajectory beyond this whole system, it shows that we have a symmetric system of the universe as well. So now, basically, to have this random state of light, what we are basically saying is that even though light has discrete nature, it has a specific definite state. We should as well know that light is a wave, and then wave, as it is smooth. So light has that smooth nature as well. So we can't just cut off the smooth nature of energy and and believe that we have full potential of information. So now here we have random state, and that is why it is difficult for us to clone quantum information. But what this formula of energy and this new discovery, this novel discovery, can help us to achieve would be, we know that by having expansion, we have accumulation of mass convergence, and that is what is extending or expanding the universe as we have it. But then we know that by applying this formula of everything, by reiterating this formula of everything, we have decaying virtue, and so the time trajectory is one-way traffic, unlike the two-way measure of light. And the reason we have that is for the fact that we can't get to that point where we have the instant trajectory of time. And it's only when we have the instant trajectory of time from classical realm down to the quantum and beyond that we can get reality of the universe. For instance, let's say you are observing an object moving away from you. That object, when it gets to a particular point, it will be so tiny. So now the phenomenon of quantum state or quantum realm is not even something that is somewhere in the space. It is by the virtue of momentum. So at that, you can, relative to you, you can say the particular person that was actually so big, while the person was in front of you before moving away from you, now got to a point far away from you that the person now became, the person now become a point in space. So we can call it you, as you are where you are. You can say you are the classical system in that case, while the person who is far away from you in space, such that is now a point, you can call that person the quantum counterpart. But if that person keeps moving away from you, then it will get to a point that you will not see the person again. That person is still there in the space somewhere. If you are to reconnect to the person, and okay, let me put it this way, if you now want to connect to that person, there is no way you get connected to that person by still being relativistically connected to the person, such that you move to approach the person. If you move to approach the person, when you later get to meet the person, then you have not gotten the real full information as it ought to be. The only solution is for you, if possible, you can actually move instantly from where you are to where that person is. That is when you can really have that real solution. And the reason we can't have one way measure of light is for the fact that there is this suspension. So we are not really touching whatever it is that we think we touch. We get, direct and genuine contact with whatever it is that we hold by the emergence of consciousness. And that is why I said classical mechanics is as incomplete as quantum mechanics. You understand? Because you must get to the quantum realm and then go beyond, which is, the complex level. Go beyond the quantum level to the complex level to connect to the positron. And then the feedback of that discovery of positron to that classical mass point, that is the consciousness. Like I have said, I have video for consciousness. I name it the science of consciousness. You can go and watch that. Then there is mathematical system of consciousness. So there I have explained what consciousness is with this particular formula. So now what I think we can do is that time has one-way traffic. So when you traverse from the classical realm down to the quantum realm or even beyond, you cannot go back again, because if you do go back again, you will get another result. So that shows that you are moving into the future. Or even if you go back, you are still moving to the future. So we have the flow of time from the past to the future. Even at this vertical line, we still have the flow to be from the classical realm down and beyond to the down to the quantum level, and then even beyond. So we still have the flow like that. So by supplying this positron's value, we get this particular classical value. And if we should supply this classical value into our formula, instead of getting this actual value, we will get 9.109 times 10 raised power minus 32. And you can see that it has decayed like that. But now the thing is, if we were to use that 9.109 times 10 raised power minus 32 in our formula again, we're not going to get this 2,277,250,000 kilograms. It will have decayed. It will have decayed this particular value very so close to about 2 billion worth. So you can see that the decay at classical level is random. We can see it is random, but basically we can get that random actual value by moving from the quantum level to the classical level. I think that is the only way we can track momentum by mass decay or by mass convergence. So by having this connectivity, by having the unification of classical mechanics to quantum mechanics, I think we should be able, if we can, come up with a kind of genuine analysis of this formula, we should be able to have a kind of structure that will include both analog and digital signal for our information. And once we have that, that will actually eliminate large number, what is it called? Large number analysis for AI. AI we have to use so huge numbers. We have to use so huge numbers to give you a kind to give you results. You understand? But basically, we know that momentum in the universe is by that variation in mass formation and that variation in mass decaying. You understand? So the variation is what we need to target with this formula of everything, either from the quantum level or either from the quantum mechanics to the classical mechanics, or from the classical mechanics to the quantum mechanics. So once we are able to have that transition, then we have harnessed the full potential of information. So that is a new information structure, which is the time energy information system of universe that we need to use. Though I have that in the invention of time technology, in that book it was stated there that we should have that kind of transition. I have some diagrams right there, things like that. So if you have interest in that, you can get that my book on Amazon, and there are so many other books right there too that people can get that we catapult us into the next level of reality. Because right now with this formula we have reality of what consciousness is, we have reality of the universe, which is static and undulating field, in which we have instant transmission of information, and then we have reality of free will, we have reality of what conscience is. So I'm still going to have a video on free will. Please look forward to that. It's going to be so amazing, because free will is something that is so powerful. Free will is so powerful. Free will is the starting point of the problem we have in the universe. And then that free will, if we manage it the way we should, we're going to have solution to even the problem of war in the universe. So for us to curb global war, we need to know how to manage free will. You understand? So if we can manage our free will properly, there will be nothing like war again. So let me just briefly give you an example of that. Free will is get satisfied by controlling. But the main issue here is that if you're trying to control other human being, the emergence of ego from the free will of that person will make that person to retaliate. And that is why we have history of big countries like Babylon, which controlled the world in the past, being crunched later and things like that. Because even the country that you are controlling will later form alliance with other countries and retaliate. So basically, the solution is what I call influence. Don't control, influence. You can only influence people by creating something of value that people will emulate. But the issue that I have seen in that is that, for instance, let's look at Elon Musk as an example. Elon Musk is actually serving the whole world by providing solution to some big problems of the world. And as a result of that, he has influenced so many people, so many countries. And that has, paid off for him in terms of, revenue. So now, Elon Musk is now the richest person in the world. So he has harnessed that power of influence. And so the issue now is, if Elon Musk now get to a certain level, he might decide that I want to have power, so as to, because the ego of free will too will be there, unsatisfied, even though he has attained that level of being the richest person in the world. So if we should now venture into politics such as to, have power, and then, that is when is free will and the ego can be well satisfied and fully satisfied. But that will as well lead to its downfall, because the main problem of the global war we have is for the fact that all the countries creating the global world, creating the global war, they want they want to rule. They want to have dominion over other countries. So when you are trying to control, it will lead to a big problem. But if you influence, You can be at the pinnacle of your career without attracting any form of, enmity. So that is that briefly about how we can get solution to the global war problem. You understand? So I'm going to have a full video on free will. I implore you to look forward to that because it's going to be so informative. So now that is that about information. Information, the current structure of information is incomplete by having one or zero state of light, because that is more or less like restricting light nature to discrete nature to, constant nature. But the full potential of energy is more than that, because energy also is smooth. You understand? So if we could have emergence of particle, you know already that there is this trait of smoothness in energy, and that is that we need to explore every possibility and every potentiality of energy to arrive at the full potential of information. So that is that. So I believe this video is quite informative. I implore you to subscribe to my channel so as to be updated for the subsequent videos. And I'm going to put a link. So a link to my I'll put a link in the description below. You can click on that to explore this formula of everything, and then you can get my theory on www.ijser.org. So I have time theory of the universe, then I have seeing the anatomy of quantum gravity through formula of everything. Those are the two publications. You can get them free of charge, then conduct your research on them, explore them more. Then don't hesitate to share this with your friend. I want it to travel as far and quick, as wide as possible, for people to know that we already have solution to unification of quantum mechanics to classical mechanics. So that is that. Thank you. God bless you.